This is message number 5A through B in my Endtime Babylon series. It's entitled Endtime Babylon's Wealth and Worship of Money. In message number 2 of this series, I mentioned that Endtime Babylon has both metaphorical meanings and physical, even literal meanings. The metaphorical meaning is that Endtime Babylon represents the entire anti-God world, described throughout the New Testament as the values and systems empowered by the sinful nature and Satan to oppose God. In chapter 4 of the book Endtime Babylon, I discussed that metaphorical meaning further. I have not provided a video on that chapter, so this message is number 5, A through B, covering sections A through B of chapter 5 of the book. In the next messages, we want to focus on the much more important physical and even literal meaning of Endtime Babylon. As noted in previous messages, almost 600 biblical prophecies have been fulfilled so far in human history. And every single one of them was fulfilled by a physical person, place, or event. None of those prophecies were fulfilled in merely a metaphorical way. So, understanding the physical fulfillment of the prophecy in Revelation chapter 17 through 18 is critically important. Fortunately, chapter 17 through 18 give us many attributes of end-time Babylon to enable us to recognize its fulfillment in our world. This message will focus on the clearest and most important attributes predicted for end-time Babylon, which will be regarding its wealth. As a result, we will begin to make a convincing case that this biblical prophecy is describing the United States of America. First, let us talk about end-time Babylon's greatest power will be its great wealth. Accordingly, there is one statement in the prophecy that is the most definitive regarding the identity of end-time Babylon. When it is destroyed, the international businessmen of the earth will cry out in 1 hour, such great wealth has been completely destroyed. It's that statement, such great wealth has been completely destroyed, when end-time Babylon itself is destroyed. Now, international businessmen, you're probably not familiar with that phrase in this text. That translates a Greek word that will be discussed below. But notice that the identity of end-time Babylon in the prophecy is focused on its great wealth. Therefore, the clearest description of end-time Babylon is this: it will be the world's economic superpower when the end times begin. Any interpretation of this entity must conform to this, or it will be wrong. It is end-time Babylon's great wealth that is the source of its worldwide power, commercial superiority, excessive luxury, and spiritual idolatry, all of which are also prevalently described in this prophecy. The great wealth of end-time Babylon is immediately portrayed when John saw that the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand. Revelation chapter 17, verse 4. All of these are clear symbols of great wealth. Likewise, the prophet Jeremiah described ancient Babylon as rich in treasures. At its height, it was surely the wealthiest empire in the world. The great wealth of end-time Babylon is illustrated in the prophecy by its great commerce. Ezekiel even referred to ancient Babylon as a land of merchants and a city of traders. Likewise, end-time Babylon will be the world's leader in commerce and the consumption of material goods when the end times begin. This is reflected in the mention of its prominent international businessmen 4 times in the prophecy. Unfortunately, all versions translate the Greek here as merely merchant. Webster's defines merchant as a buyer and seller of commodities for profit, a trader, or the operator of a retail business, storekeeper. But this is not the meaning of the Greek word used here. Rather, another Greek word was used to refer to the English idea of a merchant, often referring to a local trader or tavern keeper. However, the Greek word used in Revelation chapter 17 through 18 means, quote, one who travels by ship for business reasons, denotes wholesale dealer in contrast to a retailer. New Testament scholar Grant Osborne notes, these were wholesale dealers who traveled all over the Roman world selling merchandise in huge quantities. Likewise, New Testament scholar Leon Morris writes, the word merchants, used 4 times in Revelation, refers to wholesalers in international commerce who trade large quantities of items, unquote. Therefore, the 4 uses of this Greek word in Revelation 18 refer to end-time Babylon's powerful international businessmen and the massive corporations they lead. Let us note this more accurate translation in the following text. Revelation 18:3. The international businessmen of the world have become wealthy from the power of the prostitutes, end-time Babylon's sensual and worldly luxuries. Revelation 18:11, the international businessmen of the world will weep and mourn when the prostitute, end-time Babylon, is destroyed because nobody will buy their goods anymore. Revelation 18:15 and verse 17, the international businessmen have become wealthy by selling the prostitute, end-time Babylon. These things will stand far off, terrified by her great torment. They will weep and cry out. In 1 hour, such great wealth has been completely destroyed. Finally, in Revelation 18:23, we read, your international businessmen were the world's important people. Clearly, end-time Babylon's international businessmen will be among the most influential people in the world. Why will they be so important and powerful? Because end-time Babylon's international businessmen will be selling commercial goods all over the world. But there will also be international businessmen of the world who became wealthy by selling end-time Babylon their goods. Therefore, end-time Babylon will be the foremost consumer of material goods in the world when the end times begin. As the Revelation scholar Grant Osborne notes, quote, the purpose here is to show that God's wrath has descended on them because of their showy, self-centered materialism, end quote. Accordingly, in Revelation chapter 18, verses 12 through 13, a total of 28 items of primarily luxury items being purchased by end-time Babylon are listed, and I'll discuss those more in the next message. Apparently, many of these items will be brought to end-time Babylon by sea. When end-time Babylon is destroyed, the greatest consumer and importer in the world will be gone. Therefore, at that time, all who earn their living from the sea will cry out, woe, woe, a great city where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin. End-time Babylon's great consumption of material goods will also make others in the world richer as well. The prophecy states, all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her idolatrous adulteries, and the international businessmen of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Revelation 18:3. Not only will end-time Babylon possess great wealth, but will produce great wealth for others, which is why all nations will have drunk the maddening wine of her wealth and adulteries in the world. Therefore, some things are very clear about what end-time Babylon will be. It will be the economic superpower of the world, the leader in international business, the wealthiest place in the world, and the foremost consumer and importer of material goods coming by ships. This is the clearest description of end-time Babylon in the prophecy. So think about it. Let me read it again because this interpretation is undeniable. End-time Babylon will be the economic superpower of the world, the leader in international business, the wealthiest place in the world, and the foremost consumer and importer of material goods coming by ships. That is the clearest description of end-time Babylon in this prophecy. All of this will be motivated by end-time Babylon's lust for material comforts. Regarding Revelation 18, Osborne writes, quote, one of the major themes of the chapter is the sin of materialistic luxury, unquote. Therefore, when end-time Babylon is destroyed, the world's international businessmen will say, the fancy things you love so much are gone. All your luxuries are gone forever. Revelation 18:14. Luxuries is a good translation of the Greek word here that is only used here in the New Testament. Luxury is a unique and common theme of Revelation 18. Webster's defines it as a condition of abundance or great ease and comfort, or an indulgence in something that provides pleasure, satisfaction, or ease. That kind of luxury will be a primary characteristic of end-time Babylon. Accordingly, the people and place of end-time Babylon are described as having desires for extravagant luxury, Revelation 18:3, having lived in luxury, verse 7, and having enjoyed her great luxury, verse 9. The Greek words used here are also not used anywhere else in the New Testament. The noun means to live in luxury, live sensually. There's no need to choose between the two meanings, as Bible versions do, because it would seem both are meant. Therefore, a good translation of the Greek here is sensual and worldly luxuries. Sensuality means the sinful and worldly devotion and preoccupation with the indulgent gratification of fleshly appetites. That will be what drives the people of end-time Babylon. Therefore, materialistic, sinful, worldly, extravagant, and luxurious living will be primary attributes of who or what end-time Babylon will be. End-time Babylon's idolatrous religion will be the worship of money. This is the next point I want to make. What people crave and pursue will be their God. This is why Jesus said, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. A few verses later, Jesus equated the desires of your heart with worship of a God when he said in verse 24, no one can serve two masters. For you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Notice that Jesus said, what or who you love will be your God. The word love serves and is devoted to and enslaved to money. Accordingly, Jesus said a few verses later, the pagans run after all these things that money can buy. Verse 32. In Luke, the same Greek word is translated worldly wealth. The root meaning in both Aramaic and Hebrew refers to what a person trusts. The potential for idolatry and wealth is clear. This is why Jesus singled out money as the greatest rival of God for worship in the world. He could have chosen a number of things, including false religions, but he chose one, money. This is because money is the closest thing the world has to God, claiming to supply humanity's every need. With enough money, people do not think they need God. It is the premier idol of the world, which is why Jesus said money is God's greatest rival on earth for worship. Money is the world's God. Therefore, it is appropriate to say that money is the most powerful and popular false religion in the world. This is why the Apostle Paul wrote, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. Whenever people have a love of money, they will be worshiping the idol of money, pursuing spiritual adultery, and not trusting and worshiping God. Money will be the religion of Endtime Babylon. The prophecy describes its people as loving wealth and luxury. Again, when it is destroyed, the international businessmen of the world will say, the fancy things you love so much are gone. Loved translates a Greek word that means a great desire for something, longing, craving. Accordingly, the prophecy describes their desires for extravagant luxury. Endtime Babylon will be the world's foremost example of the worship of money. Endtime Babylon will also be the world's foremost promoter of the worship of money. Unfortunately, the rest of the world will crave and envy the superior worldly wealth and sensual luxury that Endtime Babylon will have. Accordingly, it will be both the foremost example and promoter of the idolatrous worship and religion of money. This would seem to be one meaning of the repeated references to its spread of spiritual adultery in the prophecy. The Revelation scholar Robert Thomas explains, quote, it is beyond dispute that this woman is the epitome of spiritual fornication or idolatry. She leads the world in the pursuit of a false religion, unquote. What will be that false religion? Thomas continues, quote, Endtime Babylon has promoted herself by instilling an unquestioning faith in her supposedly inexhaustible financial resources, thereby discouraging any sense of a deeper need for God. The connection of fornication and luxury in these verses indicates that Babylon's fornication consists not only of idolatry, but also includes her pride in excessive wealth, unquote. What nation does that remind you of? Earlier in this message, we observed that the most repeated description of what Endtime Babylon will be is the world's primary source and center of wealth. It is by the power of money that Endtime Babylon will be leading the world to pursue an idolatrous religion. Therefore, in the following text, we see wealth and spiritual adultery being described together. Revelation 17:2. With her, Endtime Babylon, the kings of the earth committed spiritual adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries, or her wealth. Revelation 18:3. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her spiritual and sinful adulteries. The kings of the earth committed spiritual adultery with her, and the international businessmen of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries and wealth. Revelation 18:9. The kings of the world committed spiritual adultery with her because they enjoyed her sinful and worldly luxury or wealth. Revelation 18:23. Your international businessmen were the world's important people. By your magic spell, the lure of wealth and luxury, all the nations were led astray from God into a false religion of worshiping money by Endtime Babylon. The human passion for prosperity, possessions, and pleasures that money can buy is what will make the pursuit and worship of money the intoxicating wine that all the nations will have drunk from end-time Babylon. At the beginning of the end times, end-time Babylon will be the foremost example and promoter of the idolatrous religion of money. Accordingly, many Bible scholars either partly or completely define end-time Babylon as a worldwide false religion. This is particularly true of those who claim it will be the Roman Catholic Church or Islam or a new ecumenical faith that emerges in the world. However, what seems to be often ignored is that there is already a one-world religion that is and will be much more powerful than any of these other religions. By far, the most powerful and popular religion on earth is money. This is the God that is worshipped and depended on more than anything else in the world. As noted above, Jesus named money as God's greatest rival for worship on the earth. Therefore, we do not need to be guessing or suggesting or debating what religion end-time Babylon will be promoting, as a lot of scholars do. At the beginning of the end times, end-time Babylon will be the foremost example and promoter of the idolatrous religion of money. Related to the idolatrous power of money is the advertising industry. It would seem the power of marketing that is displayed everywhere in the world is being described when we read, "The inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries." End-time Babylon's religion of worldly possessions will be spread worldwide with the powers of advertising. Money will be end-time Babylon's foremost religion, and its advertising of merchandise will be the foremost evangelist of that religion in the world. Accordingly, in chapter 4 of the book, I write this, quote, "There are other aspects of the anti-God world that steal humanity's worship and dependence from God. Related to the idolatrous power of money is the advertising industry. Why were companies in the world willing to spend over $600 billion for advertising in 2022? Because it creates the desire for more money and what it can buy. Advertising increases the power of the world over humanity," unquote. Therefore, end-time Babylon will be the foremost source of advertising and marketing in the world. Because of the emphasis on its great wealth, some deny end-time Babylon will be a spiritual religious entity at all, but rather only an economic entity. But the truth is that end-time Babylon will be the greatest source and promoter of both a religion and wealth. And the false and idolatrous religion will be the pursuit, trust, and worship of money. Therefore, when the end times begin, end-time Babylon will not only be by far the wealthiest place and people in the world, but by far the foremost example and promoter of the idolatrous religion of wealth and money. And this is precisely why we read in Revelation 17:16, "The beast Antichrist will hate the prostitute and will permanently remove all people from her and strip her naked and will devour her body and will burn her down with fire in 1 hour such that no one will ever live there again." Why will the Antichrist destroy end-time Babylon and the people and the place there? A primary desire and purpose of the Antichrist and the devil who will empower him is this: full worship with no rivals. The Antichrist's eventual goal will be that the world obeys God's own first commandment in relation to him. You must not have any other God but me. Satan knows that what Jesus Christ said is true. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one, despise the other. You cannot serve both God or the Antichrist and money, as Jesus said. Satan knows that the world cannot serve, worship, and depend on both the Antichrist and end-time Babylon's wealth and money. If Jesus said money is even God's greatest rival on earth for worship, then the same will be true for the Antichrist. This is why the Antichrist will burn down with fire the people, place, and wealth of end-time Babylon, which is why we had better pay attention to this prophecy and identify what and who will be destroyed at the beginning of the end times. Therefore, the next question to be addressed is, how does America compare to the clearest attributes predicted for end-time Babylon that we have been discussing? This will be the subject of the next message.